Welcome to the Legend of Fortinsniff. This video is a video where I have simply mashed together all 4 of the videos that I have created inside of World of Warcraft on the Iron Man challenge, and it was a lot harder to mash them together than I had originally thought. If you would prefer to watch each individual video, then please feel free. I do have a playlist created for all of them. I would also like to mention that I am still sick. It really only seemed to get worse, but I think I am finally starting to get better. So I have taken a couple of days break just to recover, but to be honest, I was getting bored and I wanted to get at least some kind of video out. I did try to record a new one, but it was just 3 hours of coughing, so I just ended up scrapping it. Anyway, enough yapping. I present to you the Legend of Fortinsniff. Last year, the entire WoW community got obsessed with this new mode called Hardcore, a mode in which players would take classic WoW to the extreme. Now in classic WoW, everything can and will kill you, and what classic Hardcore was is that it made it so that players only got 1 life, meaning once you die, your character is gone. Now me personally, I'm not a massive fan of classic WoW. I just find it to be a bit slow for my liking. So recently, I made a video about a hardcore mode that I came up with in retail WoW, and a lot of people seem to enjoy it, and a lot of those people suggested that I give the Iron Man challenge a try. So I did my research, and the challenge sounded like it could be a lot of fun to play, so I did. First things first, I obviously needed to create a character, and well, I normally play warrior, so that's what I decided to play, because not only does it provide me with some of the best early game damage, but the survivability of this class is insane. Now typically I would play Horde. In fact, I've pretty much never played Alliance in my entire time playing WoW, except for maybe once or twice years ago, but never anything serious. So I decided to play a gnome.
Help me!
Why? Well, because they look funny. I gave my new gnome a nice big mustache, and all that was left was to pick a name. Of course, I went with something appropriate. If you've watched my previous video, then you will be familiar with my character Fortinsniff, a brave troll warrior who tried to solo Ragefire Chasm. RIP Fortinsniff. So I would like to introduce you to Fortinsniff's autistic cousin, Fortinsniff. He may be small, but his ambitions are grand. This gnome warrior shall venture off into Azeroth with nothing but crappy gear. Anyway, now that we are here, I think it's probably best that we go over the rules of the Iron Man challenge. Rule number 1, do not die. Pretty self-explanatory, this is meant to be a challenge, and if I was allowed to die, then there would be no risk. Rule number 2, only white gear. The entire point of the Iron Man challenge is that you're not allowed to equip any gear that is above white, meaning things are only going to get harder as we progress, as white gear starts to disappear from the loot tables relatively quickly. Rule number 3, no groups. Obviously, being in a group would mean that everything would become immensely easier. This is counting dungeons and raids. Except on the website, it does say that you're allowed to run dungeons with a group of people that are all on the Iron Man challenge, but I highly doubt we're going to be able to find enough people for a whole group for it. Rule number 4, no auction house. This is because white gear is pretty scarce and it becomes really quite difficult to acquire later down the line, and the auction house just makes it a bit too easy to acquire. Rule number 5, no professions. This is everything from blacksmithing to herbalism. Obviously, it would be a bit easy to craft any gear upgrades through professions like blacksmithing, and gathering professions would provide a significant chunk of experience, and we don't want that. We want to be getting all of our XP through combat and combat-based quests. Lastly, on the website, it does say that all mounts are allowed, so who am I to argue? And I just want to explain what my goal here is. Well, the end goal is obviously to get max level and maybe do some max level content, but that will probably take me a little while. So for today at least, I would really like to get to level 30. Once finished the boring introductory quests, I was thrown into an unfamiliar place called Karanos. A small settlement with all the necessary NPCs, and the best part of it was the cozy inn that was there. Honestly, it felt so cool to have an inn that looked like this. It really created the feeling of being an adventurer. But I knew that it wouldn't last long, because I had other plans. And those plans were to get to level 10, so that I could ride on my mount and journey elsewhere. After completing only a couple quests, I had hit level 10, which meant I now had to take a trip to the one place that I hated. Stormwind, the capital city of the Alliance. Everything you could possibly want is here. Need something done? Well then there's probably an NPC that can get it done for you. Need a portal somewhere? Well, there is probably a portal somewhere. And of course there's cheese. But what we were interested in was an NPC called Chromie. This annoying gnome would allow us to travel to any expansion and timeline we wanted to. And I wanted to go somewhere that I had never really been in before. And that was Northrend. I never played Wrath of the Lich King, considering it came out when I was 4. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to explore it a little. So I hopped on a ship and journeyed to Northrend. After a short boat journey, we had arrived in yet another unfamiliar place called Boreen Tundra. I expected the entirety of Northrend to be covered in snow and ice, but to my surprise, Boreen Tundra wasn't like that at all. It kinda had patches of snow, but not what I was expecting. I of course picked up as many quests as I could, killing bugs, exploring a cave, killing some scourge, and even killing seamen. It was all quite exciting exploring a new place, but it wouldn't take me long to notice one problem with questing here, and that would be the quest rewards. You see, all the quests here were giving me green rarity gear, and of course, I can't equip it. So I had to take a step back for a second, and think of a different place to quest. A low-level place that I could get white gear as quest rewards, and maybe even buy white gear from vendors. You know, even though I've only been playing WoW since the end of BFA, I've gotta say, Goldshire is probably the most nostalgic place in WoW for me, because I have fond memories of briefly playing the game when I was only around 5. I only played for like a week, but still. I picked up as many quests as I could, and did all the regular stuff here, like exploring the kobold mine and killing boars and stuff. And I've gotta say, up until this point, everything seemed pretty normal. All the mobs were still dying pretty quickly, and I don't think I had dropped below 50% health yet. And after finishing up in Goldshire, and merking Hogger just because, I started to run out of quests in Goldshire. So I headed over to Westfall and did all the regular stuff there. And once I had gotten to the quest, Hot on the Trail Murloc, which we basically had to kill Murlocs until one of them dropped a clue, I had my first close call. Now, as much as I would love to play the raw clip here, I was actually listening to copyrighted music at the time, but basically, I don't know how to play Prot Warrior, and I pulled maybe just a few too many mobs, and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't expecting to almost die here at all. I was just vibing and then suddenly started to panic, but luckily, with the help of Heroic Leap, we were able to escape the grasp of the Murlocs. I mean, if I did actually die, that would be the most basic of deaths possible. Death by Murloc. After my panic moment, I continued to quest as normal in Westfall, moving further into the zone to complete the quest that would eventually lead me up to the Dead Mines quests. And at this point, we had steadily made our way to level 21, and decided to take a break for a while. Once coming back, I decided that it was about time that I switched off of Prot Warrior, so I found this vendor who luckily had a few two-handed swords for sale. So I bought 2 of them to give Fury and Arms a try. But after I did switch, this is where I first started to notice that I was doing almost no damage to my enemies, and the enemies were doing a lot to me. It felt like I was whacking the mobs with a limp baguette, and I genuinely feared that I was going to make a mistake and die, so I switched back to Prot for the survivability, at least for now anyway. Continuing on, there wasn't really anything particularly significant that happened in the rest of Westfall. Just doing the regular things like killing mobs, completing quests, and partaking in a rally, you know, the usual. Shortly after, we were pretty much done with the entirety of Westfall. There was a few things to do here and there, but to be honest, I was getting bored again. So, I once again looked through my map to find a place that I wanted to quest in, and after a not so thorough investigation of my map, I decided to quest for a bit in Loch Moden, because I have a very particular memory of being like level 15 and trying to kill the Moden monster. Before we venture off into Loch Moden, I first had some business in Stormwind. After almost dying and realizing how little damage I was dealing, I thought it was time for some upgrades. So I headed into Stormwind and located this vendor who was selling low tier white gear and some low tier weapons, and equipped myself as well as I could and made my way over to Loch Moden. This is honestly one of the coziest places I've seen in WoW yet. There was an amazing cozy inn just like the one from earlier, nice buildings which had flowers growing on the side of the paths that led up to them. Overall, just a really aesthetically pleasing location. Maybe this is where I belonged all along, instead of the dusty plains of Kalimdor. But we were not here for looks. We were here to quest and gain experience points, which we were getting through killing bears and such, and all was good. And I was vibing again when I had yet another really close call, when I was coming out of a cave filled with kobolds, and I charged a rare mob and accidentally pulled an extra, but whatever. But they were beating me down, and I got really greedy to make sure that I got the kill on the rare mob which tried to flee, but accidentally pulled more and had to try and make a run for it through even more mobs. And all I can say is, thank God hamstring exists, because without it, I was for sure dead. And by the way, that was like a 5-minute period where I thought I would see if Fury was still dealing no damage. And yeah, it was. With that crisis averted, I continued to quest as we were getting very close to our goal of level 30. And well, the game decided to push me out of Loch Moden and over to the wetlands, which happened a lot sooner than I expected, to be honest. But there was some cool quests to finish up here, like there was one where we have to infiltrate a tower that was filled with dragon maw orcs. And after that, we were teetering on the edge of level 30, and only had to do one more quest, which was to steal some dwarf's beard.
Here there. Watch, get her back. Good.
After completing the first chunk of quests in the hinterlands, we now needed to tackle the hardest part of this zone, where we had to go to this area that was swarmed with trolls and kill loads of different kinds of trolls and collect certain items, etc. When I first saw this area, I kind of thought this would cause some problems just because of how many mobs were running around here, but actually it wasn't too bad. I could fly on top of the tall walls and then drop on top of whatever I needed to kill. And whilst I was here, we did manage to pick up this quest item from one of the trolls, which is nice since it's pretty much free XP. We then needed to venture into a cave which was full of spiders, creepy, and then decided to turn in the free quest that I had picked up, which took us on another quest where we had to escort a robot chicken, which I suppose is perfectly normal for World of Warcraft standards. And it was all going fine. It was just a few trolls that would pop up every now and then, but then I got jumped by 3 owl dudes. I honestly panicked slightly, because right now I was comfortably able to take on 2 mobs, but 3 at a time was getting a little harsh. But luckily the robot chicken took aggro off one of the owls, and we got out of it unscathed. We only had a couple more quests to complete inside of the hinterlands, like killing a load of undead invaders, killing a load of spider worshipping trolls, and then killing said spider itself. Lastly, for our adventure in the hinterlands was a couple of casual quests of killing wolves and feeding the birds. Then the game would push me out of the hinterlands as we had completed pretty much everything here. The game took us to an unfamiliar place called the Eastern Plaguelands. The name once again sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place what it looked like. It was a harsh looking place, very dark and lots of dead plants and stuff. Upon arriving, I could already tell that this place was going to be rough, as there was an undead scourge everywhere, and to be honest, I wasn't about to mess with this many mobs. I did complete a couple of quests just to get an idea for what the zone would be like, but no, this place just had way too many mobs for my liking. So I took a step back for a second and took a trip to the one place that I hated most, Stormwind. The capital city of the Alliance. Everything you could possibly need is right here. Auction house, banks, a portal room, it's all here. But what we were interested in is an NPC called Chromie. This annoying gnome would allow us to travel to any timeline and quest in any expansion that we wanted. And I wanted to quest in a place that is aesthetically pleasing. So I decided to go with Mists of Pandaria, because in all honesty, it's one of my favourite places to quest whilst leveling, and I've never done it from the Alliance side because I've only ever played Horde. So I hopped on a ship and headed for Pandaria. Once we arrived, we first had to take on the introduction scenario, where we begin to gun down the Horde. Nothing quite like taking a war to a land full of peace. Seeing this from the Alliance side was pretty weird, because it is essentially the same thing, just in another location. Once we are deployed to the ground, we once again slaughter as many orcs as my tiny gnome arms will let me, but after the first few initial quests, we get to take on this like 4-quest Horde invasion thing, where we get to destroy ammunition stockpiles, kill a few mini-boss NPCs, and then free captive Pandaran cubs, which is kinda messed up, man. And everything was going just fine, until I had to take on a guy called Gatrul. And honestly, I thought this was where it was going to end. He was constantly casting, he was stunning me, he was constantly teleporting around the room, and there was quite a few times that I got put into the red zone. But with the help of impending victory and the ability to interrupt him 3 times, we did emerge victorious. Now that the introduction quests were completed, we could finally start to quest in the thick jungles of Pandaria. And what better way to start than by murdering a load of monkeys? We were then sent off deeper into Pandaria to a camp that was absolutely swarmed with even more monkeys. We had to rescue some allies here, and while being as careful as possible as to not accidentally pull too many mobs. But luckily it went pretty smooth, and we freed our allies and headed even deeper, where we befriended a load of fish people. And whilst here, we got to go through a couple of really cool quests where the characters are telling a story, but like we're playing as if we were the characters in that story. I mean, why don't we get cool things like this anymore? Basically, this entire quest line was that we are gearing and training a load of fish people to go to war with the monkeys. I have absolutely no idea what this contributes to the story of World of Warcraft, but you know what? It was fun, and I was really starting to like questing here. But like all good things, that quest line ended, and we were sent off to help a random Pandaran do his gardening. I think it's funny how World of Warcraft goes from a war between fish people and sentient monkeys to gardening with an anthropomorphic panda, although it was a nice couple of quests just to relax by painting Anduin, trimming a tree and meditating. But like all other NPCs in this game, this Pandaran wanted us to go out and murder a load of crocodiles and such. Once we had finished the crocodile killing, we had made it to level 49, which means we only had one more level to go before we had reached our goal. But before that, we had to meditate, of course, because that is what 95% of Mists of Pandaria is. Then it was up some hill where we would complete our last few quests before we would hit level 50. Luckily though, it was 3 very simple quests where we had to enter into a cave, kill 6 spirits, collect 4 water, and kill 2 mini-boss NPCs. And to be fair, these things did put up a pretty decent fight, which I think is a great way to end the day.
Greetings.
We start off the day exactly where we had finished last time, on top of a random hill with the game prompting me to speak to Anduin, and then making our way to a small location called Dawn's Blossom. Honestly, I think this is one of my favourite places in Pandaria. When I come to Pandaria, this is the exact aesthetic that I'm looking for. Pretty much, at the moment, we're going to be sticking to pretty much only doing the main campaign story quests. And whilst I was picking up the desired quests, one of the cubs that was following me around made a rather harsh but true accusation against Fortinsniff. Hey, what the fuck? Oh my god, he is. He's taller than me. Whilst we are now going about completing quests, I think it's worth noting that we now have a couple of XP buffs on us. First is the 25% increase from having 5 or more max level characters, and the second is from the brand new anniversary event, where everyone is granted an additional 10% XP buff. However, we could at any point go to the new event area and complete one of the main quests to gain an additional 10% increase to XP and reputation gains. With the current XP buffs, things were going quicker than they ever had before. Dude, the XP is crazy. It's literally like 7 quests per level right now. Now, although I said that it was about 7 quests per level at the moment, now that I'm looking back, between level 51 and level 52, it was actually 4 entire quests, which is just absolutely insane to think about. Now, although I know retail isn't really about the leveling anymore, it's more about the big end game content, I think we can all agree that is just slightly too insane. I'd like to know in the comments if you guys think we should be going back to a more lengthy and harder leveling process. No way we're about to be level 53. Dude, the XP... Bro, the XP buffs are insane. Holy crap. We continued to make our way through the Jade Forest questlines without too much bother. The only real wall was when I came across a quest where we had to challenge 3 different Pandorans to a duel, and man, they were tanky, and they were beating me down quite a bit. But you know me, I am the best warrior player. Said no one ever. So of course, we did get past them with relative ease. After this quest, we had quickly made our way to level 54, and it was at this point that I decided to just add another little goal, which was to rush to level 60, and that's because I was getting a little tired of getting beat down so easily and wanted to farm some kind of gear elsewhere, plus it would be a nice break from the regular quests. But for now, we had to stick to doing the regular quests, like murder thing, collect thing, and then moving on to a small quest chain inside of a cave, which was once again murder thing, collect thing. And well, everything was going perfectly fine. I was vibing, listening to music and whatnot, when we got onto this quest where we have to get onto the back of this Pandaran's cart to deliver jade crystals. The issue was, this cart journey was relatively lengthy, and there was these greenstone gorgers that were coming to attack us. Naturally, I thought that I could just attack the little critters, but nope. As long as I was on the back of this cart, I was unable to attack them, and by the time we had arrived at our destination, we had like 5 of these things attacking us, and my initial plan was to apply hamstring to them and then use heroic leap to get away, but heroic leap was on cooldown, and hamstring was seemingly doing nothing, so I had no choice but to turn around and fight, and just hope that I was able to survive the attack. How the f*** is that fair? I can't attack them! Hamstring did nothing against them. By the way, in case you were wondering about the game audio, I somehow messed it up and I can't fix it, but here is what it sounds like. Now that we had managed to successfully escape the Gorgers, we were now on to a really cool set of quests which would take place inside of the Temple of the Jade Serpent. Now I think this is so cool because Jade Serpent is one of my personal favourite dungeons, and I honestly had no idea that there was an entire quest chain inside of this area, and it was cool because very rarely do you get to properly explore the area of dungeons. Plus the quests were fun and pretty interactive as far as quest goes, and they weren't really any bother at all, which took us up to a comfortable level 57. I can't skip this. I don't care about no cutscene. Now that we were done with the Temple of the Jade Serpent quests, we were now on the final push to level 60, and had to go through a long, unskippable cutscene and dragon ride that just went on and on and on, which would then drop us off right in front of the Jade Temple. And to be honest, I haven't really been paying attention to the storyline whatsoever, so I was a bit surprised when we went back to the war between fish people and sentient monkeys, which was okay because I like the monkeys. 58! We're getting closer! Cutscene. Oh shit! We are now on to the final stretch of quests before we travel to the Valley of the Four Winds, which I have never been to. But first, we had a couple of quick quests to do here, and luckily, they were very simple. We just had to ride on the back of a dragon and close Shah fissures, and then murder a load of Shah, and then the game would push me out of the Jade Forest and into the Valley of the Four Winds. Whoa, level 60! So we hit level 60, but what now? Well, since like level 20, Fortinsniff has had to deal with this crappy gear, which was nothing more than bought straight from a vendor in Stormwind. Now, white rarity gear only covers a few gear slots, and well, we were missing one, the shoulders. So thanks to Wowhead, which lets me see every single item in the game, I found a piece of gear called the Warped Plate shoulder pads. Now these do have quite a few different mobs that we could obtain them from, but the one with the highest drop chance is called the Blue Wax Rat Catcher and can be found in High Mountain on the Broken Isles. So using my Hearthstone, I made my way back to Stormwind and took the portal to the Broken Isles. High Mountain, the place of the High Mountain Torrents. It has a very rustic kind of style, and I think it looks pretty fantastic. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for a tiny cave filled with kobolds, and specifically, we're after the Blue Wax Rat Catchers. Now, there may not be many of them roaming around, but I am more than prepared to sit here for a couple hours at least, trying to farm up some shoulder pads. Yes, this guy here, this is what we're after. Okay, one and done. Second try. Nothing. 10 minutes later, still nothing. 30 minutes later, nothing. An hour later, nothing. It can't be this bad, surely. I mean, the drop chance really isn't that low. Surely we will get it soon. 90 minutes later, still nothing. 2 hours? Nothing at all. So, I had already been here for like 2 hours. So what did I do? Well, I gave up. Now that I had successfully wasted 2 hours of my time, I decided to head back to the Valley of the Four Winds so that I could start to power through as many quests as I could in order to rush to level 68 and start the War Within questline. Starting with, of course, murdering rabbits, murdering dinosaur freaks, and murdering birds, and just being an overall nuisance to the local wildlife. And very quickly, we had made our way to level 65, and it wasn't too long after that I decided to switch it up to Protection Warrior, due to the fact that these tricky Mazer, or however you would say it, would spawn 3 illusions to help aid it in the fight, and to be honest, it was just a bit annoying to deal with whilst playing as Arms Warrior. Apart from that, the ride to level 60 was about as tame as it could possibly get, and we were level 68 in just under an hour. Now that we are level 68, we can now start the hardest part of this entire challenge, which would be the War Within. Starting it off pretty casually by teleporting to Silithis and doing the intro quest there, and then heading to Dalaran, where we would have to prepare the city by strengthening wards and helping out the citizens. Then of course the city becomes under attack by the Nerubians, and I knew that this wasn't going to be easy, but I honestly didn't think that it would be as hard as this. I mean, seriously, look at this mob. But luckily, with the help of the other level 68s that were doing their introduction quests, we were able to get the quest completed. But man, I was not prepared for the hardest part of it all. The part where we would have to take down this big Nerubian lord who had 677,000 health. Holy shit! I honestly thought that this could be the end, as there was little to no room to maneuver, so running away wasn't really an option, and ads were spawning left, right, and center. But my hero, this random Death Knight, came to my rescue, helping me take down the ads and the Nerubian lord, which would allow me to descend from Dalaran and hit the shores of Khazalgar. We were extremely close to level 70, and really only needed to complete a couple more quests. And in my mind, I thought this final bit would be a cakewalk, as all I had to do was kill 12 Nerubians, but every single mob was hitting like a truck. I really only could take down one at a time, and even still, I had to pop defensive constantly and make sure I was using impending victory on cooldown. But after 20 minutes of trying to kill 12 mobs, we had finally done it, and could turn in the final quest that would tip me over into level 70. Well, this was definitely the longest recording session I have had so far. But I am done for now. I am so done. Looking through the auction house, there was quite a lot of different pieces that I could pick from, but this set that was item level 362 would be absolutely perfect. Now that Fortinsmith is level 70 and we have given him some reasonable upgrades, it was time to head to the only place in the entire game that would give us reasonable experience points, and that would be Kazalgar. Before we get started, I would like to ask you guys to help me reach 1,000 subs by the end of the year. It costs you nothing and it means the world to me. Also, I would like to point out that I am very sick at the moment, so if I sound a little bit nasally, that is why. Once we had arrived in Dornogal, I was faced with the most important decision yet. Which zone to quest in. And like any well-adjusted member of society, I chose Hallowfall, not only because it is one of the most well-crafted zones in the entire game, but because my other two options were either spiders or candle freaks. Our first set of quests would involve this Nerubian invasion, where we had to simply kill Nerubians. Okay, let's test the DPS. Man, it feels slow. It feels so slow. That's like 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds per mob. There's no way I can take on 2 mobs at once. There's absolutely zero chance I'm going to be able to take on more than a mob at a time. So things were getting tough, with each mob taking around 30 plus seconds to kill each. But so long as I limit myself to pulling just 1 mob at a time, everything should work out just fine. The next couple of quests would be just as simple: kill Nerubians and then collect some things off the ground. Nice and easy. Afterwards, we were pushed over to the Dawnbreaker area, where things were once again pretty casual and everything was going just fine, until we came across a quest where we had to kill a big Nerubian lord. Uh-oh. This can't be good. We have to take down the big lord guy. Oh, he's got 900,000 health. I actually considered maybe skipping this quest and going to do something else, but decided to stick it out and see what would happen anyway. Woo! Full honesty, I wasn't sure about that one. Skiff taken. One more quest and we'll be level 71. Well, probably one more quest anyway. Hope it's one more quest, because then we can get our first hero talent. Now that we had successfully taken down the big bad guy, we were creeping up to level 71, which means we will soon get our first hero talents. Oh my god. Tiny little sliver of XP. Hey! Let's go. Well, we're gonna get Slayers. Slayer just because it'll help with single target damage, and pretty much every single fight we're taking at the moment is single target damage. After hitting level 71 and picking our first hero talents, which was Slayer, I continued to help out the Arathi by slaying a bunch of fish guys and freeing trapped Arathi. The next few quests we got through with no problem at all, and then we were sent into a cave to kill a batch of cultists, which again wasn't too much bother since I was sticking to my 1 mob at a time rule. Next, we had to head into Mereldar, where we met up with our allies in a bar. And these are some of my favourite quests. Just chill, casual quests like this one, where we simply buy our allies some drinks, and we could even stay and listen to them for a while. But of course I didn't, because I wanted to murder. So I headed to the orphanage, where we completed a simple task of playing with the kids there. And we also had to do a couple of other things around Mereldar, like dueling the recruits. But then of course, something else decides to start an invasion. This time the Cobus fish people, and we were given a couple of simple quests where we had to just run around and murder 15 of them. All was good. We had our hero talents, quests were all going well, and just overall we were making some very solid progress. But we then came to a quest where we had to kill Aelric. Oh my god, it has 1.56 million health. How in the unholy hell am I going to be able to kill this prick? Is it even possible for me to kill this guy? Probably not, to be perfectly honest with you. Okay, I can stun him, which is very important. Actually, I'm standing in something. Shit. No! What? What the f was I doing? I can't believe that. What was I doing? I just messed that up. Like, what was I doing in that fight? I was standing in stuff, I wasn't using defensives, that heroic leap was pathetic. I actually thought that we were gonna do it. I thought that we were gonna do it. I thought we were gonna get 80. I really did. 21 hours equipping nothing but white rarity gear. And that is how I die. Fortinsniff, the brave gnome who set out on a quest to reach max level by equipping nothing but white rarity gear. Starting as a little level 1 in Coldridge Valley, he explored Loch Moden, he braved the eastern plaguelands, he even made his way through the thick vegetation of the Jade Forest, died at the hands of Aelric. I want to thank each and every one of you for sticking around this long, and I really hope you enjoyed the Iron Man series because I loved making it. And I apologise for a bit of a shorter one this time, but I am still quite sick and have been for the past like 5 days. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you haven't watched the entire Iron Man series, then I should have created a small playlist for it by now, so go and give them a watch. Remember, I'd absolutely love to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so any help is appreciated. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.